So I would just use the example of Enzo Bettiza, who was a famous, renowned Italian journalist and writer, author, but he really originates from Split. And he was, I don't even think that he considered himself to be ethnic Italian. His mother was from Brač, and his mother tongue, the first language he spoke was Croatian. But he originated from a very, very prominent family of Split, probably the richest in Split. And those of you who are interested, you can read his book Exil or Esilio, where you can read about the life in Split before World War II, and also how shocking was the exile when they were more or less forced to leave Split after the Second World War. So in this book, Enzo Bettiza gives us 5 symphonies of Dalmatian cooking, and I will jump right into those. These would be caporali or arambashici. I think that we've mentioned these before when we spoke about dolma of the Arab or Turkish cooking. When the Ottomans came, they also brought these dolmas, and many of them were, and much of these dolmas were then soaked the indigenous culture. They're present even in Romania, and they're called, I believe, sarmale, because again, they're called sarma. But there is Dalmatians would say, a huge difference between sarma and caporali or arambashici. First of all, Dalmatian sarma or caporali, they're smaller and they're denser, they're thicker, and then they're placed tightly together, and this is why they're called caporali, which basically means soldiers, corporals, or even arambasha. Arambasha would be the commander of the Hajduk squad. So there's an element of military here, but also of upper military class. So this was considered to be a noble dish, if you know what I mean. Also, in Dalmatian version of sarma, there is no rice, and there is much, much, much more spices. So nutmeg, cloves, orange rind, and lemon rind goes in it. And then also, of course, tomato paste. So again, we have this thicker, much more aromatic influence in this dish, which is so typical of Dalmatian cooking. Brudet od škarpine would be another symphony of Dalmatian cooking. Now, these fish stews, you could say that it's not anything special. Certainly not if you take a look at the famous French bouillabaisse. However, the difference is that in bouillabaisse, a scorpio fish or scarpina is only added to add thickness to the soup, whereas here in Dalmatia it's considered to be the best of the fish meats ever. And really, when you think about it, the contrast between the snow white scorpio fish meat and the thick, deep blood red sauce of the brulet makes quite a spectacle. I would like you to observe that today, sadly, when you see the presentation of the French cooking and the presentation of Dalmatian cooking, you can hardly compare it. And this is why we really need to work hard in order to bring our cooking to the level it deserves. The third symphony is Fajananizets, which is really wild rabbit, which takes days to prepare. First, you need to stuff the rabbit with bacon and garlic, cloves, pepper seeds, and soak it in a dip made of wine, aromatic, vinegar, capers, and also some people put salted anchovies in this liquid in the marinade in which the rabbit is soaked. And then after a couple of days, when this pungent and really poor texture of wild animal is completely transformed by the marinade, then it's cooked with rosemary and also with liver sauce until the liquid becomes as black as coagulated blood. So it's a really, really particular dish, and something that actually I miss from my childhood, because my grandfather used to be a hunter, and now I don't have access to wild rabbit anymore. Then there is another dish that Enzo Bettiza put out there as a very prominent example of Dalmatian cooking, which is woodcock or shluka, which can be either roasted on the spit covered with bacon or prepared in a similar fashion, just as the rabbit, although there is one bizarre element added to it, which is basically excrement, feces, or pardon my French, shit of this bird, which does not really taste like you know what, but it has kind of like a sweet taste and aroma, and then it's scraped from the inside of the bird, and it's purified with vinegar, with pepper, other exotic spices, and then it's mixed with horseradish plus livers, and then it's broiled on olive oil, onion, and rosemary, and then it becomes something that is it becomes really thick, like a pate, like a pastetta. It's interesting to observe then in Italian cooking we only find it in the region of Maremma, which is on the western coast on Italy, in Tuscany, only that Dalmatian version is more piquant and lighter than Merdocchio, as they call it in Tuscany, in Maremma. And then, of course, how could we talk about Dalmatian cooking without talking about pastitsada? Pastitsada is basically beef, which is then um, marinated in, in, in vinegar, but before it's again stuffed with garlic, with bacon, with celery, with carrots, and then it needs to be pressed with something really heavy and kept in the marinade for at least 2 days. Normally, 3 days would be optimum. And then, um, this marinade is prepared with wine and vinegar, and you add different spices like cloves and nutmeg, and after that you need to take this whole huge piece of meat in one piece, and then you fry it on onion and celery for some time until it becomes half done, and then it's cut into pieces and then cooked again with the rest of the marinade and spices. And the final outcome, um, and the final outcome is something that has again the same spirit of wild meat, but it has the sweet and sour taste, which and the sweetness comes also from the fruits, the dried fruits that you can add to the sauce too. So it's a completely strange and elaborate dish. You can also see again this thick sauces, dark sauces, so typical of Dalmatian cooking. It's called pashtitsada because it was served with pasta, but also with gnocchi. Uh, the only cousin that we find in Europe is Sauerfleisch, which is German, South German and Austrian dish. But really, it's completely different and cannot be compared to pashtitsada.